Right. Hello, and welcome one and all to a very special episode of Sci-Fails because, like usual, I am going to be examining some aspect of our society, culture, and folklore that is based totally in unscientific groundings. And today we are going to look at a notion that's very popular when it comes to cetaceans. If you don't know what cetaceans are whales that would be divided into two major groups. We have the toothed and the baleen whales. Now, we are going to be talking about both of these groups today, so hopefully you are here for it. We did have a little bit of whale stuff last week, and we're just going to roll with it because when it comes to folklore, whales are steeped in it because for so long we didn't understand very much about them. So without further ado, let's just dive right into the topic at hand. The first person that comes up on our list is this 19th century sailor. Did the 19th century sailor get swallowed by a sperm whale and survive? In 1891, two small whaleboats from the British vessel, the Star of the East, were lowered into the frigid waters of the Falkland Islands, 500 kilometers east of Argentina, after sighting a huge sperm whale. Crew members James Bartley, 21, watched as the harpoon met its mark and the creature dived 250 meters before the line went slack once more. Moments later, the whale burst from the water, smashing one boat. All but two of his crew were rescued. One of the missing was Bartley. The whale resurfaced and was winched onto the ship, where whalers noticed movement in the stomach, so they cut open its gut. Out came a boot on the trouser leg, and there was James Bartley, still living after 15 hours in the belly of a whale. Its digestive juices had permanently bleached his skin a deathly white. He lost his hair and was nearly blind. For 2 weeks, he was delirious, and it was months before he could tell how he'd fallen into the whale's mouth, felt the huge teeth grate over him as he slid down into the throat, then stomach. The modern Jonah lived 18 more years, dying at 39, continues an account at the Eden Killer Whale Museum in South Coast, New South Wales, which sources the story to records of a British Admiralty. The museum adds a note: before diving, sperm whales inhale deeply and rapidly, storing oxygen in muscle fibers, tissues, and blood. Could it be that James Bartley survived through storing up of such oxygen? And then we got a news report about it. The answer is clearly no, but if the museum swallowed the story, so did the media. For the next 100 years, Bartley was the subject of cetacean-sized early examples of journalism, the pinching and recycling of one journalistic story. The Great Yarmouth Mercury in the UK started with the scoop rolling on the 22nd of August, 1891, and the Morning Bulletin at Rockhampton, Queensland, snapped up the bait on the 11th of September. Dozens more papers ran the story virtually sourceless word for 2 years. It wasn't until May 11th of 1907 that the Evening Journal declared champion fish story a hoax exposed. But the tale refused to die and was rerun in many papers over the next 2 decades. It appeared again in various publications in 1928, 29, 32, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 38, and in 1942 when Melbourne The Age gave it a run. And in 1944, 47, 48, and 53. The yarn continued to be published right up until 1985 when the Sunday Mail even reported how Bartley had settled down in as a cobbler in Gloucester, England. Historians have since concluded that the Star of the East was not a whaler and that there was no James Bartley on its crew manifest, while scientists confirmed it is not possible to survive for 15 hours in the stomach of a sperm whale. For nearly 100 years, the media largely swallowed this whale of a story without once trying to interview or find a picture of Bartley. It's a great example of never letting the facts get in the way of a good story. So for me, this story was actually quite influential, and I believed it up until probably maybe 15 years ago or so. Like, it was part of the folklore that I grew up with. It was the books that I had in my parents' house were mainly curated from the late 70s until the early 90s. When computers took over. So there was a set of books that were from this period where the story was still being perpetrated as true. So this was part of my growing up, was that James Bartley, this guy, was a real person. And he's just not. More recently, the facts were carefully investigated by Edward B. Davis, who pointed out many inconsistencies. The ship in the story, the Star of the East, while a British ship by the name existed and sailed during the time in which the incident allegedly occurred and could have been near the Falkland Islands at the right time, the relevant Star of the East was not a whaling vessel, and its crew list did not include a James Bartley. Moreover, Miss John Killam, the wife of the captain, wrote a letter stating that there is not one word of truth in that whale story. I was with my husband all the years he was in the Star of the East. There was never a man lost overboard while my husband was in her. The sailor has told a great sea yarn, Davis suggested. That's the story. That the story may have been inspired by the Gorleston whale, a 30-foot rocal killed near Great Yarmouth shortly before in June 1891 that generated a lot of publicity. Wonder if there's anything about that. Wonder why it was so famed. Let's look that up real quick. Oh, no. Gorleston whale. Whale of a teal. Here we go. A Whale of a Tale, Fundamentalist Fish Stories. Okay. Just more whales eating people? Well, here's Bartley. I guess that's probably the same thing I'm reading. There's a young mink whale. That's not what they're talking about, though. This would have been before that. Anyway, you know what? I want to just watch this real quick, though. This guy. Not this guy. Fuck this guy.
A 56-year-old commercial lobster diver was swimming off the coast of Massachusetts when he was suddenly swept into the mouth of a large whale. Lobster hunters are an extremely tough breed of people. In order for that specialty to appear in front of a guest of an expensive restaurant, someone has to dive and pull it out from the seabed. Especially famous are those from Massachusetts, who dive and collect crabs every day. They know all the places where these animals gather and hide from strong sea currents. By the way, that job is fraught with numerous dangers. The hunters
probably great white sharks being the most prevalent, but yeah, it is a dangerous job. It's lucrative though, so you gotta weigh that out.
Generally dive in pairs, while one from the boat watches the bubbles that come to the surface and follows their movement. It often happens that strong currents drag someone to the open sea. Attacks by great white sharks, which
that's not a great white shark. That's a sand tiger shark. Good grief. Does not even look like a great white shark in the slightest.
Are also frequent. 56
Did that say sand?
In those waters are also frequent. Attacks by great white sharks, which abound in those waters, are also frequent.
There's
56-year-old.
So there is no shortage of great white shark stock footage, people. Remember when we watched The Animal Psychic and she was talking about how she communicated with the great white sharks and none of the sharks shown in the footage were great whites?
Packard, a veteran with decades of experience, has experienced almost all of this, and he believes that nothing can surprise him. Several times the current carried him out to sea, so they barely found him and pulled him out. He came across the bodies of his fellow divers who failed to surface. He saw great white sharks regularly, but he was never attacked.
Also not a great white shark. That's an adorable blue shark. Look how cute it is.
He saw great
That's
white
adorable.
sharks regularly.
I think it's a blue shark. Is it a bonnet head, maybe?
He also
Maybe I was
survived a
wrong.
plane
I couldn't tell
crash
by the
10
angle.
years ago.
I don't know.
Namely, the small plane he used to travel around Costa Rica crashed in the rainforest. The pilot, co-pilot, and one passenger died in the crash. Packard, along with 5 surviving passengers, survived 3 nights without any necessities. In doing so, he had several internal injuries. When the rescuers found them, they claimed that the victims would not survive another day. However, nothing stopped him from continuing his work. It was the same on June 11th of 2021. Packard left the house early in the morning for the harbor. He boarded the ship with several colleagues. Just as they set to sail, the engine broke down. All but Packard transferred to another vessel. He stayed with the crew he trusted. They had sailed together thousands of times. What is one small flaw when they were already in a place Packard had marked as excellent for hunting? He put on a diving suit, put on the bottles, and jumped over the fence.
Must speed him up just a
Josiah
little
Mayo
bit.
remained on deck with the task of tracking the bubbles. Michael was slowly descending. He roamed around because of the constant danger.
Because this is obviously AI voices, and it's kind of annoying me, but there's no way to avoid it anymore. That's all that these people do now. Nobody reads their own script anymore. They have an AI read it.
Great white sharks. Fortunately,
Which is funny because AI will read it typos and all.
none were in sight. He relaxed and dived to a depth of 15 meters. He saw a pile of lobster. He got down and started collecting them. The bag was slowly filling up. Then he felt a shock.
Do lobsters live in piles?
He did not understand what hit him, as if he had been hit by a tow truck at full speed. Everything went dark. He thought he had passed out. Why can't he see anything? In an instant, it crossed his mind that he had been attacked by a great white shark.
Now that actually looks like a great white shark. It's a terrible 3D model, but it is actually a great white.
Then why is everything black? She couldn't swallow him. He felt around for sharp teeth, but there were none. He felt only something smooth and flat. Then it finally dawned on him. He was swallowed by a whale. Now he is in the mouth of a huge animal. He was trying to fight to get out. He flailed his arms and legs to no avail. He just felt more pressure, as if a whale was trying to crush him in its mouth. An oxygen regulator fell out of Packard's mouth. He stopped breathing for a moment. He frantically searched for it. Finally, he grabbed it and put it back in place, not giving up on the jabs and kicks.
What do you guys think so far?
Maybe that's how he gets the animal to just spit him out. Nothing happened, except that his head began to spin. He almost gave up. He thought of his sons. Their father has just been swallowed by a whale that will remain in their memory. If at all anyone finds out how he ended up, all the adventures and misadventures he survived, and from which he emerged victorious, will remain in the shadow of a bizarre death. He mustered the last atoms of strength. He began to strike again. Then he saw the light. He remembered that this was how people described moments when they were close to death. Yet this light was strange, as if he had seen it before. This was not how he imagined those last moments.
What do you mean, as if he had seen it before? It's the daylight, right?
Then he hit his head on something. It only took him a moment to realize that his head hit the surface of the water. The whale simply rose to the surface and began to shake its head violently. This dislodged the diver. Packard spent a few more seconds below the surface, then barely surfaced.
I doubt he was diving in tennis shoes.
He floated, barely aware of what had just happened to him. He heard the sound of the ship's engine. His comrades were arriving. A few seconds later, he was already on the ship's deck. He heard someone calling for help on the phone. However, he could hardly believe what he was saying. "We are sailing towards the shore. Our diver has just been swallowed and spat out by a whale. And it was about him." At the hospital, it turned out that there were almost no injuries, except for a bunch of bruises and a sprained knee. Scientists explained how a humpback whale almost swallowed him. These monstrosities, about 15 meters long
They're not monstrosities. Shut up.
and weighing almost 40 tons, feed by opening their mouths wide and sucking up everything in front of them. Smaller fish, plankton, and whatever comes their way. Packard had the misfortune to find himself in that place. However, the whale could not possibly swallow him. Its throat is too narrow. But he could have been hurt by blows with his tongue, by breaking his neck or spine, as if it were a stick. Packard's experience is comparable to when a motorcyclist swallows a bug while driving without a helmet. He described it similarly.
That was Jim Carrey.
And apologized to the whale with an oath that nothing like this would happen again. And the next time he dives, he won't lose sight of little things like a 40-ton gaping whale.
So this story is really sus, right?
We would like to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching, please press a like button. Consider subscribing to our channel and hit a bell icon so you get notified when we come back with another exciting true story.
And they said this was a true story a year ago. So I did lots of poking around to see what I could figure out. And as far as I can tell, this tale is total BS. I had a link. I don't know what happened to it. Hold on just a second. The lobster diver. Yeah, here we go. I mean, my source is not great. It's the Daily Mail, but they're interviewing experts at least. It sounds fishy. Doctors and experts cast doubt on Lobster Man's claim he was swallowed whole by a humpback whale, saying his lack of serious injuries is suspect. Doctors and experts are skeptical of the account of Lobster Man Michael Packard, the 56-year-old who was on a routine dive off the coast of Cape Cod when claims he felt a bump and everything went dark. Doctors say someone undergoing such an encounter would have suffered from serious injuries, including hearing loss as a result of the changing in water pressure. Packard feared he was eaten by a shark, but claimed he was inside a whale. The lobster diver, for 40 years, Packard said he struggled and feared for his life, but after about 30 seconds, the whale spat him out. Packard was rescued by a crewmate suffering from some bruises. The lobster diver has been accused of lying about being swallowed whole by a humpback whale. He says spat him out because it didn't like how he tasted. One doctor at Cape Cod Hospital, why does this keep popping up? I don't care about your pop-ups not loading. Where self-described whale swallowing victim Michael Packard, 56, was treated, said Michael Packard should have suffered hearing loss following the freak accident. He reportedly ascended from a depth of 45 foot, from a 45-foot depth to 20 to 40 seconds. Didn't have any evidence of barotrauma, the unnamed emergency room doctor said to the New York Post. Although physicians did treat Packard personally, although the physician didn't treat Packard personally, they suggested that someone undergoing such an encounter would have suffered serious injuries, including hearing loss, as the result of the sudden change in water pressure. Packard was released from Cape Cod Hospital Friday afternoon, mere hours after the incident, with no broken bones and just some soft tissue damage. The commercial lobster diver who worked out of Provincetown, Massachusetts, said he was swallowed whole last Friday. He claimed to have lived to tell the tale because the creature didn't like how he tasted and spat him out. Packard told Cape Cod Times he was completely inside the massive mammal and that it was completely black. He had yet to comment on claims that he is lying. Other fishermen were also wary of Packard's whale encounter. I guess this is what we're waiting on here. Maybe I can reload it. I don't know. But my opinion is that the dude's full of it. Because when go into an animal's mouth, it's applying pressure to you with its muscular tongue, you're going to experience some more than soft tissue damage. The whale also, while baleen plates are not sharp fangs, they are they are still going to crush you. You're going to be crushed against them, like being crushed against a fins made of bone by water pressure and a giant muscular tongue. You're not going to survive that, but this guy claims that he did. I don't doubt that maybe he got hit by a whale. That makes sense. Getting hit by a whale sounds like a possible thing that could have happened. But getting swallowed by a whale, no. I bet he got hit by a whale, and maybe it even knocked him out for a few seconds, and he thought he was in the whale's mouth during that time. I doubt it. That it would have actually closed his mouth around him and then dove back down. And the guy was down by the rocks collecting lobsters, where, as you see, the feeding technique for the gray whales is to actually burst up, not swim down and grab stuff along the bottom. That's just not how they generally feed. Just generally speaking. But that's my opinion on that. We're also going to talk about... let's go into this now, because this gets a little biblical.
There are strange creatures in the Bible that fall outside of normal scientific classification. One of the most famous biblical beasts swallowed the prophet Jonah whole. According to the Hebrew Bible, Jonah was consumed because of his sin against God. He had refused God's order to preach in a condemned city. Instead, he fled and set sail across the Mediterranean Sea.
True.
God then called up a terrible
That's
storm.
what the Bible says.
Jonah told the sailors that he was to blame. To satisfy God and calm the storm, they would have to throw him overboard. The oldest biblical texts tell us that God summoned a great fish, which later texts translated as a whale.
Yeah, but if you look at the early art, it doesn't look like a whale.
Fish a whale? Or was it something else?
What do you guys think? Was it a whale, or was it something else? Or was it fiction? Was it fiction?
Underwater subs. What lurked in the deep, dark waters of the sea was a mystery. Great underwater beasts would surface now and then, but they would only give sailors a glimpse of their...
Oh no, we see our own dark underwater beast here. We have a sinister porpoise among us. Never mind that he lived in the mountains of Pennsylvania and had never been to the ocean. Who are we talking about? Am I back at the beginning? Hold on, let's see. Should I go back to playing Baldur's Gate 3? Let me see here. What are we talking about, porpoise? Computers taking over is awesome in some ways. The techno bros controlling them suck. Makes me a supreme tech lady. It's good to see ya, porpoise. Did you not pass go or collect $200, Al?
Anatomy. Much was left to the imagination. And so descriptions and illustrations of sea creatures...
Sorry, I gotta do something on my phone while I'm listening here.
Know of sea animals today.
We'll just take a second.
But the book of Jonah was written thousands of years ago. Perhaps there were creatures then that no longer
Just some
exist.
delivery stuff that I had scheduled. They want to notice. Ooh. Not a whale. Looks like a giant fish. Looks like a Zephactus. Is that a
The
Zephactus?
Bible says Jonah survived inside the
Going
belly
knock,
of
knock.
the great fish for 3 days and
I
3
doubt it was a
nights.
cichlid.
He begged God forgiveness for his
I don't know if
disobedience.
Jonah could survive in a cichlid's belly.
Only then did the fish spit out Jonah. Is it possible that a man could be swallowed whole and live?
I like how in that most famous image of Jonah getting eaten by the whale, you can see his butt crack.
Is it possible that a man
Right
could
there,
be swallowed
yeah.
whole and live?
Fish is gonna get that ass.
What sort
He's
of
always
fish
naked,
could
though.
accomplish such a feat?
Why is Jonah always naked? He was on a boat. What were the sailors doing that Jonah was naked?
This is a fossil representation of the great white shark, but the modern shark gets to about this size. This was a large shark, probably 20 feet or so in length. And the teeth of white sharks are large and serrated and designed for taking chunks out of their victims. So as a result, most attacks by white sharks on humans result in serious injuries, which then precludes the possibility of a human being consumed whole by a white shark without any damage. However, in the past, there were large sharks in the fossil record that were large enough to consume a human being without causing such damage. These ancestors of the white shark and the mako shark.
I'm calling them ancestors. The white shark and mako shark is a little, well, mako shark's fine. Mako shark's fine because they're close related to makos.
Grew to much larger sizes than they are today. And one in particular, the megatooth shark, or megalodon, grew to a large size.
Odotus,
40 feet
a
or
totus.
so in length. About 100 million years ago, this animal was the granddaddy of all sharks, the apex predator, the top of the food chain. We know
Well, it had Leviathan out there too, so there was that.
things as manatees and whales, ancestors to modern baleen whales.
The enormous teeth of the megalodon have been found embedded in the bones of prehistoric whales. This massive shark ate
True.
whales for lunch.
The problem with this being our choice of an animal that consumed a
They weren't the type of megafaunal whales we see today, though. I mean, let's keep that in mind.
human whole was that it wasn't found on the earth at the same time as humans. Humans simply were not here at the same time as the megalodon was swimming in the ocean. However, there are other sharks that get larger than the modern white shark. These are the basking shark, megamouth shark, and whale shark, all of which get to sizes of 20 to...
Now, you could swim into one of their mouths if you were
The
dumb.
basking shark and whale shark are commonly seen by divers, but the megamouth shark is a rare species, only discovered in 1976.
What do these three sharks have in common, besides their large size? First and foremost, all three of these species are plankton-feeding sharks.
Plankton refers to very minute shrimp-like organisms that live in the water column.
Well, there's more than just that. If plankton includes, those and larvae of other crustaceans, some different cephalopod babies, some eggs. It'll include spores of other organisms that breed by sporing. Plankton will include a lot of larvae of different organisms. A lot of organisms that get big in the sea even start off tiny little members of the planktonic layer. They just there's a whole little biome there that lives in that group, and these creatures filter them out of the water.
To feed on plankton, all three species of shark, whale, basking, and megamouth, have very large mouths but small throats, lined with gill rakers, slender structures that form a fine mesh, which filters the minute organisms from the water.
A human, if it was unfortunate enough to be
The cool thing about basking sharks is they have vestigial teeth. Now, people talk about, like, when you're talking about, biblical literalists, created kinds and evolution denialism, and they say, oh, there's no vestigial organism. Please tell me what use the vestigial teeth of the basking shark serve? Because they don't eat anything with them.
one of these animals would find the sieve-like structure and not be able to go any farther.
The filter structures found in plankton eaters also rules out the largest animals in the sea. Baleen whales, like the blue whale, which grows to over 100 feet in length, have sieve-like mechanisms that wouldn't allow a human into their guts. But what about the toothed whale?
Ah, that's fucking terrifying.
Killer
Could you imagine that be the last thing you see?
But what about the toothed whale?
killer whale, despite its fierce reputation and large teeth, have never been documented as attacking a human being. The sperm whales, which get to 50 feet or more in length and have large teeth, much like the killer whales, also have never been documented as actually attacking a human being. So
I think we're probably too bony for them. I don't know about a sperm whale, if a sperm whale could eat us or not. I don't, yeah. As far as us fitting down the throat of a sperm whale, that's the only one of these whales that I would grant that as us fitting down its throat whole. But its stomach acid would destroy us within the first few minutes down there. You'd be dead. So, an orca couldn't swallow you whole, but it sure as hell could tear you apart and eat you chunk by chunk.
as a result, we can again take these three groups of marine mammals and cross them off our list. Even if one is so unlucky to be swallowed by a whale or a shark, the acids in the stomach of these animals is so caustic that nobody could hope to survive, even if one found themselves in the belly of this beast.
It looks as if there is no great fish existing today or in the past that could perform Jonah's miracle. But this
Nope.
whale may be swimming in metaphor. In the book of Genesis, it is said that God divided the waters below heaven from the waters above. Perhaps searching underwater for the beast is altogether the wrong place to start. Perhaps
So,
be looking to the sky.
I mean, I think the story of Jonah and the whale comes from the whale itself, and the great fish comes. A lot of its lore comes from Leviathan, Leviathan from the Bible, the one of the two, the Leviathan and Behemoth, the two great beasts mentioned in Job.
This is a 400-year-old star chart, an ancient mariner's map of the night sky. It's covered by constellations depicting all kinds of celestial beasts. Between the 21st and 24th of December, the nights are the darkest and longest
Which is why we picked this time to do this topic.
of the entire year. And in 760 BCE, the days of Jonah, the winter solstice was known to ancient astrologers as the whale's belly.
We are currently in the belly of the
There
whale.
was one constellation that swallowed the sky.
With modern planetarium software, we can actually travel back thousands of years to view the night sky from any location on Earth. So what I'm going to set up here is the night sky for 760 BC. Going to set our location just above the Mediterranean, and the date is December 21st. So this would have been the longest night of the year during those really dark winter months. Now, I want to bring up a constellation known as Cetus. Now, Cetus was fabled to be a mythical sea monster or a giant amphibious whale. And this
Go find Cetus in the sky tonight, guys, because we are currently in the belly of the whale.
constellation is huge. It's actually the fourth largest constellation in our night sky. It's made up of about 15 faint stars, 5 of which make up the enormous head of this creature, spanning down into its giant whale-like tail. And because it's so enormous, you can actually only see it in its entirety between the months of October and January. So on this date of December 21st, at about 8:30 in the evening, you can just see that Cetus is just above the southern horizon, and you can see it just sitting there stretching across that part of the sky.
Cool.
During the 3 longest nights of the year, sailing under this constellation was called being in the whale's belly. The story of Jonah's whale may be carrying a simple message. A man who sins is consumed by darkness, and a man who begs forgiveness shall be released from darkness. For millennia, people have taken the biggest fish story in history literally. But this beast is really swimming in the stars.
All right. So that was some sci-fails for you. Yeah, as far as humans surviving in the belly of a whale, from Bartley to this guy from Massachusetts here, I don't think so. I think that in the mouth, in the belly, whichever. I don't think it's happened. If a human did get eaten by a whale, it would have to be a sperm whale, and they would not survive. All right, so this is the halfway point of the show. So thank you for sticking around with me. We will be moving right along. I guess I need to say goodbye to my folks watching this in Sci-Fails. Thank you so much for sticking with us and hanging out while we explored the belly of the whale during the time period that we are actually in the belly of the whale. You won't be watching this during that time period, but please remember to be kind and take care anyway.
I'm kind of this morning. I've had this really strong coffee. I made my coffee too strong this morning, so now I'm all jittery. It's not as good as it sounds. I keep wanting to wiggle. I keep wanting to get my wiggles out. Oh.